Okay, so let's get back to the implementation. So I don't know if you remember that last time we created this tutors DAO file. Do you remember why did we create this tutors DAO file? Yeah?
To split the data access functions from
Sure.
the data insert.
Sure. Because we wanted to split the responsibility of dealing with the database into a different set of files. We didn't want all of the responsibilities and all of the functionalities of the Flask application mixed with the database management. So our approach and our reasoning here is that for each entity in the database, we will create a file that we will name the name of the entity underscore DAO, okay? This is just a convention. It doesn't mean that just that because we name this file DAO, it does something. It's just a convention to specify that this is a data access object, okay? This is a concept borrowed from the object-oriented programming, but in this case, we will keep that concept as tutors DAO. What we will have on this tutors DAO file something like this. That is basically the functions that will give us the functions that will perform some operations on the database. Okay. So in this case, for instance, we created functions such as get tutors. In the case we wanted the list of the tutors that were in the database. In this case, let me change this because I think in the new database is tutors with lowercase. And we also created a function to add a new tutor in the database. But we will also have to fix this one because it's tutors, which were the fields that we defined. It is here, this one is different, no? How are we going to deal with the creation of a new tutor? It won't be like this anymore because we don't have a tutors table with all of these fields. So, so maybe we won't have this new tutor option, but something like become tutor, okay? That is, we will have a new user option, a new user function that will create the new user, and then upon that, we will have a different function that will make that user to become a tutor, okay? That is consistent with the design of the database that we created. So this one, let's delete this one because I don't want to create any confusion with this. And we will just have get tutors. So let's try to create a new one. Let's try to create a new DAO file, one for each entity. So users. Why users? Because there is the entity called users that corresponds to a table in the database. So we create the users DAO. And well, let's create indeed. So when we want to create a user, we will ask his name, we'll ask his surname, we will ask his Okay, for instance, here we forgot to add a field for the user image, for the profile image. So it's something that we might have considered when designing the database. Do we want to enable each user to have a profile image? In that case, we should have added a new field in there. Now, of course, we still have the option to add the new field to save the user image. For now, let's keep it this way, and then we will add the field. Let's make it work with the fields we have defined so far, and then we will get back to the database. So in this case, we have insert into users, name, surname, okay, this is pretty obvious, but don't forget that these names that we set here in the code must match with the names that we gave in the column to each field, okay? And password, okay, values, imperato.db, and here we set okay, so now we have users DAO that has a new function that enables us to add a new user in the database. So I hope you are noticing that we are doing this bottom-up approach. Okay, so first the design of the database, then on top of the database, in the backend, we're creating the DAO file. Then with the functions to access the database and to manage the database. Then on top of this, we will get back to the app.py, that is the Flask application, and from there we will see how are we going to connect, let's say, the front end with the backend and with the database logic. So let's get here. Okay, and here we already had this route that was the sign up route that rendered this template that was registration. In registration, indeed. We were here, but okay, this register won't be anymore the new tutor registration page, but instead of new tutor registration page, it would be something like we'll ask the users to create an account, a generic account, that is the registration for everyone. Okay, here we had the field for the name, then we had the field for the surname that remains exactly the same. Here, in this version, we had the quote, but we don't want that quote anymore, but instead of that, we want to ask the email. This one is not a text area, but an input. So in this, okay, is this big enough? Can you see there in the back the code? It's fine? Better like this, okay. So here I fixed this input field so that it accounts for the email. So now the type is email. Okay, I changed the name and the ID, and I changed the placeholder. Okay, rows is not anymore required. It used to have this attribute because it was a text area. So in the text area, if you remember, we can define the number of rows that it will occupy. In this case, we don't need this one. Okay, so we have the email, and then we have the password. Let's copy paste this one. Oh, you know what? I will modify this table to add the profile image, okay? Do we set the profile image as non-null, or we leave it optional? Maybe we can leave it optional, no? So that if the user wants to upload an image, then he can. Otherwise, we might show kind of a placeholder or something like that. So well, let's leave this optional. Okay, txt. Of course, here it is not required that all of the names match with the ones in the database, but if you can, try to make them match so that you don't make any confusion between the values and the keys that you use on the front end and the ones that you use in the back end. For instance, here it was first called image profile, something like that, but I decided on purpose to give the same name here in the front end as the one that it is on the back end, so that I know that I will be managing or dealing always with the same values. Okay, and this one is not required because we leave this one as optional. Nice. So in the front end, now it looks something like this. Create the Imparato account with the name, the surname, the email, and the password. In case of the, in case of the password, this is something new because now it shows like this, okay? Which is something that we wanted. And then we have the option to upload the profile image. Okay. Okay. Fine. So we fix the graphical interface, the front end. And we know that this form will be submitted to this root. So let's take a look at that specific root in app.py.
So we need to modify also the DAO?
Yeah, and we also need to modify the DAO. Good observation, because here we will also ask p profile okay. Do you agree that here we should do something like if no, indeed. Do you understand what I did here? The query by default, or I start the function stating that the query is this one in which I just have name, surname, email, and password. But then I ask if the value that I received here as a profile image is not empty, meaning that a specific root for the profile image has been passed to me, then the query is not this one anymore, but I modify the query to become this one. No? Because this one is the query in which I will also set this profile image. Okay? Both of them will work because the profile image is optional. But in the case that the user has specified me a profile image, then I won't execute this one, but I will switch to this version of the query in which also the profile image will be indicated, okay? And then I have to do something similar here. What? Oh. And the same with here, no? Because here we are executing the query. So in the case that profile image is not empty, then I will pass profile image as a parameter, because I know that the query that we will be executing is this one that is expecting 5 parameters. In case in which the profile image is empty, then I will execute the query without passing that parameter, because I know that in this case the query that will be executing is this one. Okay? Is this clear why we did that specific modification in the case where a field is optional? Okay, so we modified the user's DAO. And here we have our function, our root, that is the one that manages the submission of the form. So here we have name, surname. We don't have quote anymore, but we have email. We have password, name, surname, email, password, okay. It's not tutors DAO, but users DAO. We're missing here. Okay, and here I did something similar now because we are not sure that we will be getting an image. And on the other side, on the DAO function, we said that if the user didn't upload any image, we will pass that parameter as an empty string. So that on the DAO, if it receives the empty string, he knows that that information hasn't been provided and executes the query without inserting the profile image. So to keep the consistency with the decision and with the implementation we did on the DAO, here we're doing the same. We are creating this temporary variable that is image name. I initialize it as empty. And then here I ask if profile image exists, if I received something here in profile image, if a file has been uploaded in this field, then I will set this temporary variable with the name of the image that has been uploaded, and then I use that image name in here. So if I didn't receive any image, this value continues to be empty and the parameter is passed as empty. Yeah.
Isn't it better to put in the if also the profile image
Yeah, we can add it also here, sure. Yeah. Do we all agree with this implementation? And here we will say it is not works anymore, but it is sign up, tutors, my history, home, okay. And then after a submission form has been managed, then the correct way to get the user to redirect the user to a specific page is by using this function that is redirect, and we use it jointly with URL4, indicating the name of the function we want to redirect the user to. So in this case, for instance, we said that after completing the processing of the submission, we want the user to be redirected to the page or to the route that corresponds to a home function. That is this one here, okay? Okay, send a request that the server couldn't understand key error image profile. Why? Because here I'm expecting this image profile, but I don't know if you remember that here we changed the name of image profile. Where is it? We changed it to profile image. You know, because we wanted it to be consistent with the database, so we changed this one. So here I'm not expecting image profile, but I'm expecting profile image.
Also, can you go back to the HTML?
Sure.
Not the code.
Okay. Yeah.
The for match the ID.
Yeah. This is profile image. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so it seems it worked because after doing the submission, it redirected us to the home page and nothing crashed. How do we know if it worked? Because if we open the database file, we should see that a new user has been created here. And indeed, we have created the user Juan Science, okay, with the password and with the, and in this case, you can observe here that the profile image is null, okay? Just let's what happens if we upload an image? Okay, this one. And now if we update the database, we can see that the new user has been created. But in this case, here in the profile image field, it saved the value of the, I mean the name of the file, okay? Questions so far? okay, let's create this functionality. Since we designed the application in this way, so let's try to implement all of the functionality that would let a user to become a tutor, okay? Now we know how to register the users, but now we have to provide this functionality that would enable a regular user to become a tutor, okay? Let's imagine, how do you think that functionality could be implemented? Let's think first on the graphical interface. How would you imagine that would be? Here in our graphical interface, what should happen?
Maybe inside find a tutor, there is a button that says become a tutor.
Yeah, maybe something here. Find a tutor. Yep. Yeah, it's fine. My only issue with this one, being a little, is that
Also in the
something more explicit. Something like, rather than find a tutor, something here like become a tutor. So, well, let's see. And here, so in this case, this link will lead me to the page associated with the function new tutor on app.py. So in app.py, I already have this tutors page, but I don't have a new tutors page. So new. So let's see if it works. Okay, yeah, so become a tutor takes us to this page. Okay. Nice. So we now have the link that takes us to the page that enables a user to become a tutor. What are we going to include in that page? Or what will be the interaction to enable a user to become a tutor?
Maybe a form with information that just for the tutors.
Yeah, sure, I agree. So, boom. So let's create a form here. And something like what was the information that was just for the tutors? The quote, right? Or the description? Yeah, bio. TXT. In this case, I don't know if you agree, but rather than an input, maybe a text area, right? Okay, so we added this field. That is the one in which he can complete the bio. That is the field that is just specific for a tutor. Okay, and what else? And of course, we need the Okay, but is this enough? Yeah. Yeah, the subjects, but later, because we are just now trying to create the tutor, because we still don't have the tutor registered in the platform. So just for creating the tutor, and then we will assign the subjects. What else?
We need the ID of the user that wants to become a tutor and his name.
Sure, because what we are doing here is try to associate this information, this bill, to a pre-existing user, no? I mean, at some point the tutor or the person that is trying to become a tutor has already registered on the page by using the form that we said before, no? So we typically imagine that a person that wants to create a profile in Imparato has already filled all of these, and maybe then he wants to become a tutor, okay? Do we all agree on this, on how it works, on the interaction that we are trying to implement?
Then we might already have all of the information.
So we already have all of his information, yeah. But what do we need to do when creating the tutor? Somehow is associating this bill with a pre-existing user, okay? How can we achieve that? Yeah, in the case he's already authenticated, we already know that he has done the logged in, and we know what is the user that is authenticated. But
they don't know their own ID, for example.
Yeah, for sure the user won't know his ID because it's not information that is available for the user. And if the user knows his ID, we're doing something wrong because the user must not know in our database what's his ID. So for sure he doesn't know his ID. But what does he know? No, there is another one that is unique. The email. No? So maybe we can rely on the fact that the email is unique for each user, that the users know their ID, and we must ask, okay, have you already registered? Let me know what is your email so that we can link this information with the specific user, no? So maybe something like this, that we ask for the email and then we ask for the bill. So that we will be creating a new tutor instance, linking it to a pre-existing user. Okay, so now we have the front end. What's next? I have to implement a function, no, to deal with that specific insertion. Where do I implement that function? In users DAO or in tutors DAO? tutors, no? It has something to do with creating a new tutor. So in this case, tutor. How are we going to write the query here? We just have the user email and we have the bio. Yeah.
We make two queries, one to get
Okay. One.
the user ID from the email, and the other one to append bio to
Okay.
this user ID.
I agree. So one of them is just to get the user ID because we don't know the user ID. We just know the email of the user. And the other one is for getting, for what?
For inserting the bio in the tutor statement.
For the new tutor. Okay. How is this one? Select ID from tutors where
Is it from users?
from users where
Users, but email is equal to the one that was inserted. So email.
yeah, where email is equal to but let me okay. Yeah. This way, right? Yeah.
Isn't it more correct to call a function containing the user footprint than writing directly
I can agree on that. So that from here, you first. Yeah, I agree. So here, why is it more correct?
because to access the user's table, you use the user's card.
Sure, because on the one hand, we have DAO for accessing the users, we have that specific file, and on the other hand, because maybe we will need that function again somewhere else. So if we try to atomize the functions so that they can be reused, like building using them like a bricks, it's a better practice than just having one function with lots of small implementations inside, but that can't be reused anymore. So in that case, if we create a different function here called get ID by email, maybe somewhere else in another functionality we can reuse that specific function. So yes, I agree with that. Let's say def get ID by and then the query that we were doing here. Select ID from users where email. Okay, and here in users DAO, okay, so the query. In this case, is this fetch all or fetch one? Fetch one, because we are expecting, if everything works and if it is well designed, then we are expecting to get just one user with that specific email. So fetch one. Okay. And then there is something that I'm missing here. That is okay, so let's try this. And now we have the new tutor, and the action here is okay. So here it's important to distinguish between these two routes. This one, new tutor, is a get route and is the one that displays the page. But now we will create the new one that is not a get route but a post route, that is the one that will manage the submission of the form. That in this case is basically like this one. That is the one that we use for the users. Okay. Here we just get the email. And here is what changes. Here is where the magic occurs, because first, what do I want? To see if I can get the user with the email. If there exists an ID, or what is the ID in the table for the user whose email has been passed to me in the form, okay? So in here I say so let's see if up to now it works. Okay, register can't be. What was the? check something. Okay. Okay, it is because I was missing this comma here, because remember that this, what we are passing here, is a tuple, so because of the syntax of the tuple, it is expecting a comma even if it is just a single parameter here, if it is a single value that we are passing. So well, pay attention with that. Okay, so select everything from user. Okay, and here I was printing the let me check something. Okay, so here we got the row object, and okay, then I will check that. But okay, for now, let's say that here we're getting the row object, which means that he is finding something. If, for instance, instead of this, I write and I click send, in this case, he's getting none. So somehow we know that on the back end, we are doing the query, and in the case it finds a user that corresponds to that specific email, it is returning to us that user. Here we are in half of the implementation, no? Because what we're trying to do here in the function is first to figure out if such user exists. If the user doesn't exist, we can't create a tutor associated with that user, right? If it exists, then we can create the user associated with that tutor, and we can insert it into the table. Question. Okay, as I told you, we don't have a lab on Friday. But maybe, okay, I will anyway upload the text of the lab so that if anyone wants to work by himself, it's fine. And I'm thinking that I will be uploading a complete version of what we were trying to do today. Because I would like to do it all of us together, but I think because of these holidays, we don't have that much time. And I think that anyway you understood what's like the procedure and the logic of what we are trying to do. So I will complete this example and I will upload the code, and I will also upload the text of the lab in case you want to start working on that. Okay. Okay, so let's do it that way. Do you have any questions? Is it clear? Okay, so see you on Monday. Okay.